station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event? NPR, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check. Control Houston, please call station for a voice check.
Gina Barber with NPR Shortwave Podcast. How do you hear me? Shortwave Podcast. How do you hear me?
Hi, Regina. I've got you now. I've got you loud and clear. How me?
Yeah, you sound great. I hear some of myself echo back a little.
I hear some of myself echo back though, a little.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
I'm not is
sure
it on your end, or is it, I don't know, Maggie might help us out?
Yeah, let me check with Houston to see if they can help us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Regina, it might have been my fault. Go ahead and give it a try now.
Okay, how are you doing? How's your day? Oh, I didn't hear anything.
It's great. It's
there it is. I didn't hear.
Yep, when I turn on the mic, you get the echo, so I'll try not to do that to you. But it's been a great day so far. I'm aboard the International Space Station, and it's the holidays.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and Shortwave. I'm, like, super excited. I'm truly honored to talk to you. On the call, we have our producer, Rebecca Ramirez. There's an audio engineer, Maggie Luthar, editor, Gabriel Spitzer. And I know that you emailed me, but I'm the astrophysicist and scientist in residence, Regina Barber. So I just wanted to say thank you, Josh. Cassada, right? I'm worried.
That's right. That's the right pronunciation. And no, you've got it. I get Cassada a lot, which actually sounds cooler, and there's no paperwork involved. So no, and it's all my honor. I'm really excited to be a part of this.
Well, I really am excited. Thank you so much. I want to know, well, our listeners, our whole podcast wants to know, can you describe the ISS? Like, what does it smell like? What do you do during the day? Like, can you run us through your day today?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me do my best to try to describe this place, but I'll be honest, I feel a little guilty sometimes because I just want to bring everybody I know up here and show it to them and just have them experience this. It's just, it's really something that's really tough to put into words. But my day today, just a typical day, I actually started out by taking my own blood. We tend to be the subject of a lot of different experiments. And so we get trained in being able to do that. Our crewmates can do it to us as well, but at the end of the day, you end up preferring to do it yourself. It just makes it a lot easier on everybody, and nobody needs to have that kind of relationship with their doctor. So we started there, and then we really get into just kind of a smattering of different things when we don't have a really specific big event on the horizon. And what I'm referring to is something like a spacewalk or a robotics operation where we're capturing a cargo vehicle or something like that. That's where it's kind of all hands on deck, and we're all kind of in sync and doing our part to make that whole thing happen. But today we don't have that, so we work a little bit on different experiments. We do a lot of things just to maintain the International Space Station. This is an orbiting laboratory, but it's really hard to keep this thing going, and so it requires the effort of the people up here and the hundreds and thousands of people down on the ground to make it happen. So right now, while you and I are talking, all of my crewmates are doing something to keep the space station going. I've got my friend Frank, who's working on the interface between a cargo vehicle and the space station. My friend Nicole was just working on some of the smoke detectors and making sure that they're working and updating and upgrading those. And then and our friend Koichi from the Japanese Space Agency, he right now is floating around the space station and taking samples on surfaces to make sure we don't have any kind of bacterial growth or anything we need to be concerned about.
And you get to talk to us while they're doing all that. But I want to actually ask you about, you talked about your, your friend Koichi. Like, I have a former astronaut, Captain Wendy Lawrence, who lives in my neck of the woods in Washington State, and she's been on the ISS, and she said her favorite thing was they had these, like, they had one international potluck where the other countries, like, shared food with each other. She said Japan had the best food. Have you all done that?
So Japan does have some amazing food. Koichi tends to really like seafood, like really, really fishy seafood, and I'm at the other end of the spectrum, so I love the guy. I just don't love his food. But we do share a lot of different foods when we can. You know, on Christmas Eve, we made pizza, and I will tell you, I wasn't expecting it, but it was absolutely amazing. Koichi and I were slicing really thin slices of Romano to put on a pizza crust with some sauce, and it turned out much better than we had expected. So we definitely overate on Christmas Eve.
That sounds amazing. That actually gets us to, like, one of my first science experiment questions. So, like, since we're a science podcast, we want to know, like, what science is happening on the ISS. And there's a few experiments underway, and I know that there's the Pick and Eat salad crop initiative. So can you, like, tell us about that program? Can you walk us through, like, what garden detail is like if you've done it?
Yeah, I can tell you certainly about my involvement in some of the various plant activities we've got on board. Now, at any one time, there are literally hundreds of experiments going on, and so we are essentially the eyes and ears and hands of the researchers on the ground as we hop from one experiment to the next, as well as juggling that maintaining of the space station job. But yes, we are currently right now growing dwarf tomatoes. We just started that, I want to say, 2 weeks ago, and they are already taken off. What's really interesting there is we're using a variety of different lighting and soil conditions so that we can optimize that for future missions. I'll tell you, we get really excited when we get fresh fruit and vegetables that come up on a cargo vehicle. And so to be able to do that in situ is going to be a huge, huge, not only moral boost, but also a nutritional boost for future crews. We've got another plant experiment. It's called Plant Habitat. That one is about to start running. I did a lot of the work on just getting it set up. There's a lot of hardware stuff going on, and we had some troubleshooting and some workarounds we had to do, which was really fun to work one-on-one with the ground team and the principal investigator there, and to make sure that we could make it work. And it's all humming along, and we're ready to get started there. And that experiment is going to be studying epigenetics and how or if some of these changes make it from one generation of plant to the next. Again, to just maximize our ability to do this in deep space when we leave low Earth orbit the next time. And also, these kinds of technologies we find by accident sometimes have direct applications on the ground.
So what is the biggest challenge with growing these plants in very low gravity?
The first time I took these out and essentially started the process, they come up in pillows of different kinds of soil, and I think it's containing that soil. It doesn't take much to have just a little bit of a hole there, and then the soil starts coming out, and so I had to be a little bit proactive on making sure that stuff just didn't get all over the cabin. As you can imagine, it can get to be a mess in a hurry. Now our filters tend to pick all that stuff up, but we try not to get any extra in there if we don't need to.
How do the plants grow in this low microgravity? Do they grow differently than they do on Earth?
It's really early for me to say, but they seem to be sprouting up just opposite of their soil, which is, I guess, what we expect. But maybe there's not going to be a tendency to go what we're used to, opposite of the gravity vector. So I'm interested to see how these vines start to grow. But again, we're really early into the program. But to see some green leaves where there didn't used to be any, that's pretty exciting.
So since you're so early into the program, have you not tasted or eaten any of the crop?
Nope, they're coming, and I'm hoping we're still here when it comes to be harvest time.
Yeah, that would be fun. But next up, let's talk about physics, because I'm guessing that may be what you're most excited about, since we're both physicists. What kind of physics experiment are you doing up in the ISS, and what are you most excited about?
Well, I'll tell you, Regina, the experiments that I'm most excited about, of course, yeah, you guessed it. I'm a little biased here towards some of the more fundamental physics experiments. Not that the others aren't exciting, they just aren't where I grew up. But there are, let's see, 3 or so that really pique my interest. We don't tend to interact with them. That's a little bit of a problem for me. It's great for the researchers, because if we're interacting with them, that means that something is probably broken. And I can't say that I'm hoping that anything breaks and we get to fix it, but I probably wouldn't be too brokenhearted about it. But my favorite one is the alpha magnetic spectrometer. It's a big detector that's on top of the space station, and what it's doing is just sifting cosmic rays, and it's looking for signatures of antimatter and dark matter. And it's gotten some really exciting physics results in that we found this excess of positrons, which, as you know, as a physicist, when you find something that's unexpected, it's a signature potentially of new physics, and that is always exciting in our line of work. Another one that I really like is the Cold Atom Lab, which is really very much the same kind of atom trap that we've got on the ground, but the beauty is we've got it up here, and so we don't have to put any energy into holding these atoms, these really cold atoms, in their location. And so that means we can get down to really, really cold temperatures, and the dwell time of those atoms interacting is fairly significant, like on order of 10 or 20 seconds, which is really a benefit that we can't really experience in 1G. Yeah, without dropping it. So the cool thing for me is, that's an experiment where you can see quantum mechanics happening on the macroscopic level. We've got a Bose-Einstein condensate, and you can see the quantum mechanics happening. And so I'm really excited about that one. And then the other one that really gets me excited is more in your neck of the woods, and something that maybe someday I can get into astronomy and astrophysics, but is the NICER experiment. It's this really cool X-ray telescope that, again, is out in the neighborhood of the AMS on top of the space station. And it's doing really detailed analyses of neutron stars, where the density is so high that we've got all 4 of the fundamental forces at play interacting, and it's just a really cool experiment that they've even leveraged into an experiment I think that they called Sextant, which is a really cool acronym that they probably had to force pretty hard, but it's kind of a proof of concept for spacecraft navigation via pulsars, rotating neutron stars, which is just really kind of science fiction kind of stuff that gets me really excited.
Like navigation, like using those as like points in space to navigate. Wow. So what does it stand for? Well, we can look it up. But you were saying that you want to know more about astrophysics. You're actually in space, so you've already, you've passed me. But and I wanted to ask you about your spacewalk. Like, I just watched you and Frank go on a spacewalk recently, 7 hours long. Can you tell us what that was like?
Yeah, it is the coolest and somehow the dumbest thing that human beings do. It is just, you're out there thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is what we're doing. But I'll tell you what, it only happens because of the efforts of literally thousands of people on the ground. Everybody from our trainers who got us to the point where we could get out the door safely and back in, and then even to get out there and do our jobs, to the people in Mission Control who put together an incredible plan, and then probably 5 or 6 plans beyond that just in case we need to use it. Just amazing people to make that thing happen. But yeah, you go out the door, and I'll tell you, there's a point at which you've got your head down and you're working, and you take a peek at the backdrop, and it just doesn't feel real. It's just amazing to see that gorgeous planet going below us. There was a point on our first spacewalk where we were out at the very far edge of the space station, and then actually had to go around that edge and kind of hang off of the space station. And I remember thinking, well, this is it. This is the line. This is the end of humanity. It stops here, and I need to go just past it. And so there's a point where your brain, just for a half second, says, no, I'm not doing this. We're putting our foot down. We're not doing this. But, you see it, you take your path, and you fall back on your training, and all the people on the ground are making it happen, and it's an amazing, amazing machine to be a part of.
Did everything go as planned on this last spacewalk?
Well, it never goes exactly as planned, but I will say these last two spacewalks where we deployed new solar arrays, this really cool technology of these solar arrays that unroll, they unfurl, and they're adding, more power generation for the space station as these legacy, these older, 22-ish year old solar arrays start to age. And so, yeah, things tended to go really, really well in those last two. Again, because the team put together an amazing, amazing plan that we were able to get very, very familiar with and go execute. And there were a couple times when Frank and I had to get a little creative and to get those things, this giant solar array, to get it mounted. That took a lot of coordination between the two of us. And he was working one end, I was working the other, and it worked out really well for us. And we couldn't be happier, because it's that kind of stuff that helps us do the science here on the space station. Maybe I'm not directly interacting with the AMS and the Cold Atom Lab and NICER, but at least we're providing power for those experiments.
Yeah, when I was watching your spacewalk, I was listening to one part where you were asking him for moral and physical help, and he was like, "I got you." Or it might have been the other way around. It looked amazing. Could you actually tell us just a little bit more about the cold atom chamber? Like, why in space is it easier to keep them not moving around, right? We want to have those atoms be cold and not jiggling around.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do my best. This is certainly not my branch of physics. I did high energy physics, but I love to learn about all the other disciplines. And it does, when you're doing this in 1G on the ground, you need to suspend this condensate within the chamber, because as soon as it gets away from where it should be, it's going to decompose, and it's actually going to interact with the chamber itself. And so you need to put energy into the system to hold it there. And the beauty is up here, it takes a lot less energy, and therefore you can get to a much colder temperature because you don't need to fight to hold it in the middle of the chamber. Like right now, as you and I are talking, I'm just floating. This is why we end up having to work out 2.5 hours a day. We're incredibly lazy the other 21.5 hours of the day because we don't have to do a lot. I'm not stressing my muscles. I'm not stressing my bones. If I forget something in another module, it's not like at home where you forget something and you think, oh man, I don't want to go back upstairs. Up here, it takes barely a push of the finger and you're in another module. So that ability to just exist without having to put energy in the system is how we get to such low temperatures on the Cold Atom Lab.
That's great. I like the visual. I mean, I'm sad I can't see you now. I'll see you probably recording later of you floating. But I wanted to ask you one last question before we say goodbye, and thank you for talking to us, actually. What are you most looking forward to in the new year while you're aboard the ISS?
I'll tell you what we were able to do in that spacewalk campaign was to make the space station a little bit better than when we found it, and that's going to continue. Frank and I are going to take on a new role for the next EVA, and we're going to be the ones doing the really hard work of trying to get Nicole and Koichi ready to go, get them all suited up and get them out the door, and they're going to go do another spacewalk that's going to build the infrastructure that we're going to plug a solar array into a couple months or maybe a year or so down the road. So to continue to do things that improve the space station, but more globally to kind of advance what we're doing here in low Earth orbit. This is where we do the testing. We are the test bed for the deep space exploration. So if we can contribute in any small way to what the next generation of space explorers are going to do, I'll tell you what, this is definitely a successful career. That'll make me feel really good.
That's amazing. We only have less than 30 seconds, so I'm just going to thank you so much for talking to us, and this has been amazing. Dream come true. Thank you so much, Josh.
Regina, the thanks are all mine, and again, I love listening to Shortwave. I did a 30-minute bike today, and I got through the episode that you recommended, and you guys did a great job. I really enjoyed that. I was actually telling everybody at lunch about what I learned.
Oh, you made my day. I'm going to tell Emily Klong that. Thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Station, this is Houston ACR, and that concludes our event.
Thank you to all participants from NPR's Shortwave podcast. Station, we are now resuming our operational audio communications.